all of the views and the opinions in this webinar, they are from real-time conversations that I have every day, with the likes of yourselves, all of my candidates, all of my clients, and of course my opinions. Having said that, if you've got a different view on something, I would absolutely love to hear it as well. So please do voice your opinions if you have them. And of course, this is focusing solely on the Australian market. All righty. So pretty much, despite the economic uncertainty we've all been seeing over the past 12 months, organizations haven't stopped investing in technology, which of course is fantastic for us. What has changed is where they're investing. So instead of large-scale transformation programs all of the time, businesses are starting to focus on initiatives that improve efficiency, reduce operational risk, and maximize the value of their existing platforms. So one of the biggest trends that I'm seeing across the Australian market is a real focus on cloud platform optimization. So companies are starting to ask, how do we get more value from Azure or AWS? Would a hybrid cloud approach be better suited for the business? How do we improve reliability? How do we automate repetitive processes? And how do we help engineering teams deliver software faster? Which links into the AI piece, which I'll touch upon later as well. But I think based on all of that, that's why platform engineering and site reliability engineering continue to be two of the strongest hiring areas. Organizations are building internal platforms that allow developers to self-serve infrastructure, while, site reliability teams are ensuring applications remain scalable, resilient, and highly available. So it's been interesting seeing that transition move away from solely DevOps into adding new job titles to the mix, which we always seem to find in DevOps, and a lot of them are stemming towards that platform engineering space. So AI is becoming much more practical now as well. So we're moving beyond the hype phase, so to speak. The good news is you guys don't need to worry, because AI is not replacing engineers at the moment within the fields that you're in. What it is doing is AI is being used to accelerate software delivery through code generation, documentation, testing, security reviews, and automation of repetitive engineering tasks. So when you hear of clients wanting AI experience on your CV, those are the kind of things that they're looking for. So I know sometimes, people might mention that, they work with Claude AI or ChatGPT, or they utilize those platforms, but it's in their spare time, which is very different from using them to help put together your next holiday or something, in comparison to actually using it in a working environment. Just out of curiosity, is anyone using AI at the moment?
Hi, Egle. Yes, I am using.
Oh, nice. That's good to hear. Yeah, good and refreshing to hear. And obviously, again, it is becoming more and more common. Yeah,
But was it a general question, or you were talking about any particulars, like in?
General question, just like utilizing it in your workflows, and if so, how are you utilizing it? Is it for best practices, or what specifically you've been doing with it? So yeah, as you can see on the chart, I think if you look back a few years ago, it was definitely AWS that was driving a lot of workloads within Australia, and that has now changed to Azure. I think AWS and Azure are definitely the market leaders within Australia, and then GCP is coming along a little bit more so. For active industries, I mean, the financial services, to no surprise, I feel like there's always heaps of work there, but there are other markets in addition to that that are also thriving. So lots of businesses in the energy space, and so forth. As we touched upon as well, I think the largest growth spurt that we've seen is definitely within platform engineering, just trying to make developers' lives easier, and also, enabling them with DevOps teams to be slightly more productive. Okay, so moving on to market activity from last quarter. One of the biggest shifts that we've seen over the past 6 months isn't necessarily how much organizations are hiring, but how they're doing the hiring. The budget pressure hasn't stopped projects, but it certainly has changed the way that businesses have started to build teams. We've seen a real increase in fixed term employment at the moment. So a lot of organizations still need specialist skills, but rather than committing to permanent headcount immediately, we've seen a shift in them using 6 to 12 month fixed term contracts to deliver strategic initiatives whilst they're managing their costs. Of course, this isn't any candidate's favorable employment. So it does require a lot of educating customers on that front, that if we do choose to go down those avenues, then we will be eliminating a lot of the candidate pool that, typically could be suitable for the role. Having said that as well, we do see fixed term contracts as a bit of a trial basis. So, if the fixed term trial is being successful and so forth, then you might be able to get a permanent offer at the end of that as well. Or sometimes it's for secondment and things like that. Oh, sorry. Stephen, if you don't mind just muting yourself, that would be fantastic. So touching upon contract hiring, that has definitely remained active, particularly for cloud migrations, platform modernization, Kubernetes, DevOps and cloud transformations, and other project-based work where businesses need experienced engineers to deliver outcomes quickly. I feel like there's always been pretty much a 50-50 blend within contract and perm in Australia across DevOps, cloud and site reliability. And I think that still very much remains present. Obviously, you don't see as many contract roles advertised, but they are certainly out there with businesses. So at the same time, permanent hiring hasn't disappeared. Even though, of course, fixed term has come into the picture, companies are still very much investing in permanent platform engineers, site reliability engineers, cloud engineers, because ultimately these are the people who build long-term capability and own critical platforms beyond the life of a product. So fantastic news that those jobs are not going to be being made redundant, despite what happens with the economy. Even though it's on the upwards trajectory, there's definitely still going to be those hires, a demand for them. Finally, something that I've noticed consistently, and I think we'll be seeing a lot more of it within this financial year as well, is that the quality is winning over quantity. So I don't think there's been a time where clients are being more selective. They're looking for engineers with genuine technical depth, strong communication skills, and also proven delivery experience, rather than simply, just listing off a long list of technologies. On that basis as well, I feel like before, if you tick all of the technical elements of a job, it would have been good enough. Whereas now cultural fit has never been more important as well. So just something to make a mental note of if you are in interview processes and that kind of thing. The 5-10 minutes that you get at the start of an interview, it's never been more important to try to build some rapport, or even practice in front of a mirror beforehand or something, or before the interview, because you'll be spending many hours a day working with these people, and vice versa. So the personality factor is what can make you stand out from your competition. So yeah, overall, the market is balancing short-term project delivery through contract and fixed-term hiring, while continuing to invest permanently in the engineers who will shape platforms over the coming years. So moving on to some key themes that have been shaping the market. One of the biggest shifts we've seen over the past 12 months is that organizations are no longer asking, how do we get to the cloud? Instead, they're asking, how do we get more value from the cloud investments we've already made? So most organizations have already completed the initial migration phase. The focus has now shifted towards optimization, reliability, and making platforms easier for engineers to use. The first trend, again, a reoccurring theme hot in the market, is platform engineering and building internal capability. So rather than relying heavily on external partners, businesses are investing in dedicated platform teams that provide self-service capabilities, improve automation, and standardize environments for developers. Platform engineering is an interesting one because it is still a bit of a unicorn, and different customers will want different needs from every platform engineer. So, when you do come across that title, it's always good to dive deeper into what the requirements are, what challenge they're facing, and what the role and responsibilities of the platform engineer are, because similar to DevOps, you can get so many different answers. So you also have to see if it aligns with how you want your career to shape. The second trend that I've been seeing a lot of is optimizing existing cloud platforms. So we're no longer at that stage where, you have to launch major migration programs all the time. Organizations are focusing on improving the developer experience, reducing operational overhead, modernizing the CI/CD pipelines that are in place, and getting more value from their existing cloud platforms, whether that's AWS, Azure, or GCP. I think we've seen a huge shift as well. If a company's historically been with one cloud platform, they're kind of reevaluating that and seeing if a hybrid approach could be better for them. So, elements of infrastructure might be hosted in Azure, parts of it might be in GCP for different reasons, ultimately coming down to making workflows easier, and of course cost being a factor in that. So finally, I have to mention FinOps becoming, I guess, a board level priority across businesses. I'm sure you've heard of the word or requirements of FinOps by now. But we're seeing continued investment in observability within that, security, cloud governance, and cost optimization as organizations look to build resilient platforms whilst, of course, keeping cloud spend under control. To summarize, platform engineering continues to be one of the fastest growing areas of the market because it brings all of these priorities that businesses have together. It improves developer productivity, it strengthens automation, it supports governance and helps organizations scale their cloud platforms more effectively. Having said that, as I mentioned, be cautious when you come across these roles because they all can have very different meanings. That's touching upon the cloud cost optimization there and operational resilience. And then the AI assisted engineering. If you're not incorporating that into your workflows, I'm sure businesses will try to accommodate AI within their workflows pretty quickly over the coming years. Okay, so the market's certainly picked up, and it is looking far more positive, and we've seen a lot of confidence within the market over the last 3 to 6 months. Hiring strong technical talent is still one of the biggest challenges that organizations face. And I know it's a very tricky market for candidates to navigate as well, especially because there's still so many redundancies and layoffs that have happened and unfortunately are still ongoing. So the market in Australia is flooded with a lot more candidates. So it's never been more important to make yourself stand out from the crowd. So one of the challenges I would like to address is what I would call the CV depth gap. So AI tools, if you've utilized AI for your CV, personally, it's not something that I would recommend, just because when you might put a Word document of your CV that you put it into ChatGPT, you ask to improve it. And of course it, fluffs it up a little bit, but it adds a lot of zhuzh in there that isn't necessarily correct, and a lot of buzzwords. And I think managers are starting to pick up on it quite easily when that's the case. And when they question something or dive deeper about a specific skill, and candidates aren't able to answer in depth and things like that. So when I receive an ugly CV, it's actually music to my ears. Like, I love meeting a candidate and actually understanding what they've done. So if you ever get feedback that, you need to improve your CV and stuff heaps, I would strongly recommend don't go to AI as your first point of call, because it's for hiring managers, for recruiters, it's really easy to see when a CV has been, completely been done by AI, and it's just not a great look. I know it might be easier and you think it saves you some time, but ultimately, personally, I don't think it's increasing your chances of securing the right role. And I'll be very happy to look at any CVs if you guys want to run them through me after. So yes, and moving on to another challenge, it's balancing cost with capability. So of course, again, to no surprise, budget pressures remain a reality for most organizations. So hiring managers are expected to find, experienced engineers while staying within tighter salary or day rate constraints. We often see niche roles remain open for several months because businesses are trying to find the perfect combination of experience, technical depth, AI, affordability, stakeholder engagement skills, a bit of a unicorn that doesn't exist. So yeah, it becomes challenging on that front. And because they have so many expectations, it becomes a little bit unrealistic. And that's why a critical role, sometimes ends up being vacant for months on end. So it's really important, I suppose, from our end to be able to educate customers as to what's actually viable in the Australian market. So that's that. And then another trend, this is a difficult one, and it touches upon the unicorn piece. But organizations are no longer looking for engineers who only specialize in one area. So the most sought after professionals are those who can move comfortably between hands-on technical work and higher level thinking. They might be writing Terraform code one day, troubleshooting production issues the next, and then contributing to platform strategy, architecture, and mentoring junior engineers. Yep, Sunil. So if you've got a question, maybe if you could just note it down, and then at the end I will give an opportunity for questions. So even if you want to drop it in the chat bar, and then all your questions you'll be able to fire away.
All right, no problem.
Yeah, all good. So yeah, basically, ultimately, I think having hands-on experience working with infrastructure or development is key, but also something that most customers are looking for is someone that has a mindset that looks at the bigger picture. So more architectural landscape and that kind of thing. So not necessarily having like cloud architecture experience, but just thinking about the bigger picture. A bit of a mindset thing. So that's that. So overall, we'll go through what the outlook for this quarter is. And it's already been pretty positive, to be honest. We are quite optimistic. Whilst organizations remain conscious of budgets, technology investment hasn't stopped. It's become more targeted, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Businesses are prioritizing initiatives that improve efficiency, reduce operational risk, and deliver measurable business value. We expect platform engineering to remain one of the strongest areas of demand, which we've continued to see. Organizations are continuing to invest in internal platforms that improve developer productivity, which of course we've spoken about. We're also seeing continued demand for cloud optimization rather than large-scale migrations, which is why it's important that you've had that production working on cloud infrastructure experience, technologies such as Kubernetes, infrastructure as code, CI/CD automation, and observability continue to be key investment areas as organizations focus on getting more value from their existing cloud environments. And then, as we continue to move on through this year, businesses will continue balancing cost pressures with the need for experienced engineering talent. Rather than growing teams significantly, I think many organizations will remain selective, hiring fewer people, but placing greater emphasis on technical depth, communication skills, and real-world delivery experience. And we can certainly see AI continuing to become more of the part of the day-to-day engineering toolkit, rather than replacing engineers. We're seeing AI help automate repetitive tasks, improve code quality, accelerate documentation, and increase developer productivity. So I think the engineers who will learn how to effectively leverage these tools alongside strong engineering fundamentals, they'll be well positioned over the coming years. I know initially when the whole buzzword of AI come out, it was scary to a lot of people, because to a lot of engineers thinking, is it going to replace my job, is a question I got commonly asked, but it's absolutely not. It will help you, and you'll probably start to like it, because all of those boring, mundane tasks that you do, it will be able to do them a lot quicker. Of course, you might have to look over stuff and whatnot, but ultimately it will be helping. Overall, we do believe the market is evolving from one focus on cloud adoption to one focus on optimization, automation, and engineering excellence. Organizations are investing where they can drive long-term value, and platform engineering sits right at the center of that evolution. Self-explanatory there. You can have a little look at the rates and salaries. To be honest, they've not changed the last 3 to 6 months. They've been pretty stagnant. These are probably focusing slightly more Sydney, Melbourne markets. If you look outside of that, that can vary a little bit. If you're looking to explore Perth, it might be slightly on the lower end. But they've been pretty consistent, to be honest. And just here, I just wanted to touch upon my Her Heads in the Cloud podcast and event series. So I know some of you guys have joined me on events or listened to a podcast, but it's something I've always been really passionate about, to bring value to my community, which I love doing. We've now gone live with season 2, and we've had episodes coming out consistently every week. So if you haven't tuned in yet, then certainly do for your commute home or your gym session or cycle or whatever you do. And also if there's any topics that are particularly interesting to you, if they're not on the top of your mind, or if they are on the top of your mind, feel free to drop them in the chat box or reach out to me after, because I'd love to know. And I do tailor my podcast guests based on what you guys want to hear about as well. As for this webinar, this is actually my first market report webinar. So yeah, grateful for you guys joining on the first one. But I will be doing them on a quarterly basis. So I've always done a written report. I still will very much do that and always provide that to you. But then I will also do, a quick webinar just to run you guys through what I'm seeing and what's been happening. And finally, there's a slide on the key takeaways, which I've spoken about as well. But yes, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat bar, or raise your hand. I think there was one in there. Let me have a look. I do use AI when making my CV, but I do personalize myself but question is if a candidate uses AI to help structure or polish their resume, but personalize it with real project context and true metrics, does that still stand out positively, or are the hiring managers skeptical of any AI crafted CVs now? That's an interesting one, because I feel like AI is definitely, the more information that you put into AI, the better it will be. So if you're giving it specific project examples, you can always mention, to write it with your examples, but tell it to not exaggerate. So only to use the information that you've directly put into AI to put that into your CV, because they love to sometimes add on, extra bits and you have to correct it. So make sure I even sometimes say to your AI bot, you have to speak a little bit harshly to them. So if you're specific, tell them not to exaggerate, then perhaps use it. Maybe get them to take away some of the emojis that AI loves to put in there, because then it looks really easily crafted by AI. But otherwise, perhaps in that regard, you could use it. I hope that helps, Sunil.
Yeah, thank you so much.